Hello, my name is Miss Sherman. So what are your guys' names?
Aaron.
Cassie. Cassie. Well, it's nice to meet you. I'm going to be teaching you guys a little math today. So has your class worked a lot with fractions?
No.
No, not a lot with fractions?
A little bit.
A little bit? Okay, well that's perfect because I'm going to teach you guys a little bit more about fractions today. Specifically, we're going to look at how to use equivalent fractions to find percentages. So let's say that you had a spelling test and you got 9 out of 10 questions right. And your friend says, oh, I got 80% on my spelling test. And you want to be able to compare how you did on the test to how your friend did on the test. But you don't know what percentage you got on your spelling test. You just know that you got 9 out of 10 questions right. So I'll be teaching you how to figure that out using equivalent fractions. So let's start off by talking a little bit about fractions. So if I show you this circle, this is a whole circle. If I write the fraction for this circle, I would write 1 over 1. See that? And that's because the circle hasn't been divided up, it's just a whole circle. This represents the whole circle. Does anyone know what percentage this whole circle would represent? It'd be like if you got 10 questions out of 10 on your test.
That's 100%.
Right, it's 100%. So we would write 100% like that. I'm sure you guys have seen that before on some of your tests. To write this percent as a fraction, we would write it as 100 over 100. I'll write that here as well. Okay? Now, if we see, we had originally said that this fraction, or this circle, was 1 over 1. So we can see that 1 over 1 is the same amount as 100 over 1, or 100 over 100. And to get from 1 to 100, do you guys know what you can multiply by 1 to get to the number 100?
100.
Right, 100. So if you multiply the top and the bottom by 100, you get 100 over 100. When the denominator of a fraction is 100, the numerator represents the percent that that fraction represents. So since 100 is over 100, 100 is our percent. So let's make this a little bit harder and use a fraction that's not 1. So I'm just going to take a little moment to erase all of this. You have to kind of push hard, and you guys will get to do some of this on your own, and it'll be super fun. All right, so I've erased that. Now, I'm going to draw a different fraction on this circle. All right, can you guys tell me what fraction of the circle is shaded?
It looks like half.
Right, it looks like half because it is 1/2. So we'll write 1/2 as our fraction. All right, the fraction, now, does anyone have any idea what percent this group represents? It'd be about half. Do you guys know what half percent is? Right, it's 50. It's 50%, so we'll write that there. So we know that 1/2 is 50%, but let's figure out the math to try to double check ourselves, because you sounded a little unsure, Cassie, so we can use our math to find out how exactly, to double check our work, okay? So we know to show 50%, we would write 50 over what number? Do you remember what number goes on the bottom?
100.
100, right. So we write 50 over 100. Now, we look at the bottom, and we have a 2 turning into a 100. So what number should we multiply the 2 by to get 100? You know? Or do you know 100 divided by 2? That would give you the same
50.
answer. Right, 50. So if you multiply both the top and the bottom by 50, we end up with 50 over 100. And if you look at the top, you've got 1 times 50 equals 50. And now, is this the same as we got here? Is our numerator the same as the fraction? Right, so we know that you were correct when you said that 1/2 equals 50%. So 1/2 is the same as 50%. You guys are doing an awesome job at this. Okay, now if we look at these fractions, remember we had our 1 over 1 was the same as 100% over 100 over 100, remember? If we look at these fractions, we can see that both of these fractions have a denominator of 100. And that the numerator is the same number that the fraction represents. Remember, this was 100% and this was 50%. The same can be said about the 1 over 1 is the same as 100 over 100, and the 1/2 is the same as 50 over 100. They represent the same amount, so we can call those equivalent fractions. And we call those equivalent fractions because equivalent means that they're the same. They mean the same, their amount. Now we can use equivalent fractions to find the percentage of any fraction. So, if the denominator of a fraction is 100, the numerator is the percent. That's the biggest thing that you guys can remember from this, okay? So, do you guys feel like you're getting a pretty good grasp on that? Yeah? Okay, well, how about we try some together? So I've got little fraction circles for you. You might want to use the fraction circles for some of these. When we move on, it might not be feasible to use the fraction circles because we will do some bigger fractions, but they are there if you want to use them for any of the smaller ones. Okay, so we're going to do some practice together. So I want you to show me that you've cut your circle into fourths. So can you go ahead and do that? And we need each piece to be the same amount. Yep, good job, Cassie. Good job, Erin. Okay. Now I want you to color in 3 of those little sections that you made. Yep, and I'll do that on my paper too. So we'll color in 3 of those sections. Doesn't really matter what 3, just go ahead and color them in. Okay, so what fraction of your circle is shaded? We've got 4 pieces total, and you have 3 of them shaded in. So what fraction is that?
3 over 4.
Right, 3 over 4, or 3/4 is our fraction. So go ahead and write that where it says fraction. Good job, you guys are ahead of me. Okay, so we write it as 3/4. Now, what do we do to find the percentage? Do you guys remember? What needs to happen?
It needs to be 100 on the bottom.
Right, it needs to be 100 on the bottom, so we can go ahead and write about like half your fraction. You can write it so you have 100 on the bottom, because we know that's where we want to end up. Now, if we look at the denominators, we have a 4 and we have a 100. So how can we get that 4 to become 100? What should we do to it?
Multiply it.
Right, we've been multiplying it, so we know we're going to have to multiply it by some number. So can you guys think of a number that we've multiplied by 4 to get 100?
Well, there's 4 quarters and $1.
Right, there are 4 quarters and $1.
Quarters, 25 cents.
25 cents. So if we do 25 by 4, let's see if that works. So it's 4 times 24. There's some extra space on your sheet if you need to do any extra math.
Mine worked.
Yours worked? Okay, so what number? It added up to 100?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so we know it's 25. Now, can we just